Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
President Moran,
Here.
Director Atkins,
Here.
Director Baxter,
Here.
Director Clayton,
Here.
Director Brown.
Here. Moving on to item number 1, public session. Statements from the floor will be heard during public session for items on the agenda for the special meeting. Request to speak forms are provided for those wishing to address the board. After completing the form, please give it to the clerk. The board will establish a time limit for receipt of testimony, in this case, 3 minutes. The board reserves the right to establish further time limits for receipt of testimony. Moving on to item number 2, resolution 19-9. Resolution of the Board of Directors of the Single District finding sufficient basis for emergency contracting procedures pursuant to public contract section 2205. Authorization for the award of the runway and taxiway emergency repair project. And authorization for the president and secretary to execute the contract between the district and Granite Construction Company for the runway and taxiway emergency repair project upon district council's review of the contract and the billing standards.
President, you've received a compliance letter from the FAA for our Part 139 certification of this series of concerns they have. The opportunity has presented itself that because we have an existing contractor on site, that if your board chooses to determine this to be an emergency, that we can expedite contract with that existing contractor and complete the work. If you choose not to do that, it will delay it to probably the spring. And we'll have to rebid it as a separate project. This is an option. Or perhaps there's an opportunity to delay it further for the hope that we'll get back into good graces with the FAA and get our grant money back, because these are all grant eligible projects, assuming we're eligible to receive grants, which we're currently not. So we have Jason from Catalia here, and just like to have him present the project to you, and what we're proposing for your consideration. And of course, Rick is here as well. He's intimately familiar with the FAA 139 inspection process and is very involved.
Well, I think we can. Yeah.
We can kind of start on why we're here, and I think the unique letter, my experience as the district got from FAA. The FAA had 2 inspections when I wrote this summary letter to Martin, and since then Rick has another inspection from FAA. So we got this letter from FAA that identified about 10 deficiencies. They were concerned about the Part 139 certificate at the airport. The verbiage was pretty intense. And they said no legal action at this time. However, this letter is going to serve as a notice. And one of the bigger projects on their list has to do with pavement markings on the main runway 130, taxiway Alpha and Alpha connectors. And then the second component of the project is a crack fill. So all the paving joints, they're open. I know some of you guys are pilots, you've seen it on the main runway. They're starting to open up, they're starting to get pretty bad. We've been delaying it intentionally with the understanding where we're hoping to get a grant to actually do an overlay on runway. The FAA said we were going to a couple years ago, but things have changed. And so it is time to do something on the runway. How we do it, and we do the emergency procedures up to you guys. I do want to point out, just reiterate what Martin said. We considered going out to bid, a public bidding process for the project. That was one option. The second option was to do a change order with Granite Construction and just incorporate it with the project going on right now, the taxpayer project, which is FAA eligible. But with the crack fill, it's not within their scope, so it got tricky. And we met with the attorney, and we kind of went back and forth, and we figured out It is kind of an emergency project based on the FAA letter, in our opinion, so we decided to go out to the emergency procurement process. And that's where we would use Granite, but Granite solicited to the subcontractors that are gonna be doing the work, pavement marking contractor and a crack fill contractor, both of which have worked on the airport. And you got 2 bids for both of them, so I feel comfortable with the price that we got. At first I did not, I had another meeting with Granite Construction after they first submitted the bid, if it was 30% higher than what I was anticipating. So I said, now with Granite, we got a lower price, clarified a few things, and I'm comfortable with the price we got, it's competitive. The benefit of using Granite Construction right now is we can get this done for the rate. If it's that important to the airport based on the letter that you guys have, if you guys have read that letter. Don't go with Granite, we go with the public bidding process and start after the rain season. So that's the downfall of that. Another benefit of using Granite right now is they're familiar with the airport. They're a big contractor. We already have delineation on site. Their safety and security plan will be in place. We can get to work next week essentially.
I was, question to you. On your emergency repair versus what you had planned to do a couple of years ago and hope to get FAA funding for, will the emergency repair be equal to those initial planned up repairs or upgrades?
No, absolutely not. So we're trying to do an overlay with the grant project. So that's going to be 6 inches of asphalt. And so what we're doing now is essentially a Band-Aid. It's going to buy us time for 2-3 years. And then hopefully by then we can get grant to do the runway project where we would do the overlay. So it's just crack fill and a new pavement marking, which has been a big red flag for the last 6 months.
How much grant money do you need for the runway project?
Between 10 and 15 million.
This patchwork job is grant eligible. If we were to have the ability to get grants.
Absolutely, and the materials I specified are FAA materials, so there is an opportunity to seek reimbursement in the future.
The work that's gonna be done with that same money when that is done. If you're doing the overlay, is that something that would have to be done before the overlay?
Definitely not the pavement markings, some of the cracks, and so this is a Band-Aid. We would take care of the bigger crack, we do crack fill. So there is a benefit to doing that, but all the marking work, essentially, in 2 years, we're gonna cover it up.
If I can just add some context, just for the record. So, should you decide to take the emergency action, I just want to make it clear that this is, so if you'll read the second paragraph in the resolution that's before you, the FAA in its letter on September 26th said that if these necessary repairs are not made, so your emergency action would only authorize those repairs that are necessary under these emergency circumstances. What they're saying is that it must update its airport certification manual to include runway vault area payments that are in compliance as available for use by air carrier, aircraft and by the air carrier. So in other words, as I understand it, as I've been working with staff, those runways and taxiways must be shut down if these emergency repairs are not properly made. So for the purpose of invoking the emergency contracting provisions, I just want to make clear for you and for the record that we don't want to mix up the long-term projects because that needs to go out to public bid. That's not what this is. I understand why you're asking the question about sort of, are we, going backwards? I don't think the district wants to do that. But my understanding of the situation is that the FAA is saying that you're going to have to shut down those runways if these repairs are not made.
Is there a timeline for that? Is there, will we shut it down tomorrow, per se? When will the?
I wouldn't determine it strictly if you did. How they put this? They come in here tomorrow and have a whole different position that's even worse than it is already in this letter. We were in a bind. I don't know when we're gonna get to the position where we can talk to the FAA about getting a grant about anything. And then once you get to a grant, back to eligibility, they have to program it. It might be a year or two from now before we see a grant. So, and there's other things that you are aware of that are gonna be costing us a lot of money in the very near future. So $1 million Band-Aid is really bad time. I don't have an answer.
I do know, I'll make a motion that we approve the emergency, response and get it done. For the whole time.
If we delay it, I mean, how much of a window do we have to think about this before we get out of the construction season? We're in November already.
Gotta be pretty quick. I don't have a specific date, but when the rain comes, we can't apply the pavement mark. And the contractor's not gonna come for a day, he come for a day. So we're trying to get it done before typically the heavy rain, February and a lot in January, so we want to get this done.
You said there's potential reimbursement for this, since it's FAA.
Potential, but we have some of the other projects on the ACIP that I wouldn't count on it.
The construction work isn't eligible for reimbursement.
Construction?
So that's a whole nother. This is all coming on us quickly. I would not assume that we're gonna get reimbursed for this work. Plus, we're gonna go right into another project when once we get eligible, we actually do a permanent fix. It's gonna gobble up every bit of grant money we have at our disposal. So I think this is $1 million out of pocket that we'll never see again.
I would make that assumption. And to answer your question, Ash, it's kind of tricky. More to best answer the time frame of all this, but in their latest letter, they had a correction date for some of these items, and they're dated June 2023. It's 4 months ago, and we got that letter, and say that. We got that out, yeah.
Okay, we got a first and second, let's go ahead and go for a vote.
Trustee Moreno,
Wait, are we voting for certain, but we're voting for the approval of this? Yes. So, yes.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Basket,
Yes.
Director Clayton,
Yes.
Director Brown.
Yes. That's it.
Motion,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Adjournment? Aye.